Today on Derby Debunk, we cover our most controversial topic yet, pedigree. We look at what dosage is. Nick reads a Wikipedia article. Emily reads a book. We deep dive into how important pedigree is on the breed and what it means to win the Kentucky Derby. We take it extremely seriously, as you can imagine Nick and Emily would do, because pedigree, the ultimate handicapping tool. This gambling game in the world. I'm Nick. Hello, Emily.
And I'm Emily. I think this is the big one, or maybe the controversial one. At least for me. I've been people know pedigree is kind of something that I'm not negative on, but in terms of handicapping, I am. I don't think it's as impactful, but it's one of the things around Kentucky Derby that gets talked about a lot. And I think for a couple reasons. One, kind of the historical standpoint, and even in terms of like in American racing, horses that in terms of breeding, they're bred for the Kentucky Derby in the US, right? That's the big race. That's why horses are born, right? They're not born to run Tuesday night at Mountaineer. That's just what happens when you're trying to get those 20 horses in the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby. So a lot of that is kind of done for you ahead of time in terms of the breeding from that perspective. But we also hear it in the sense that it's that thing to talk about that can be a safe topic, because there's no like right or wrong. It's how you interpret it. So one of the more, I don't want to say controversial, but I definitely said it in a way to be a little bit provocative, is to say that pedigree handicapping is a lot like horoscopes. It's how you interpret it. And people kind of get mad about that. For all the pedigree handicappers out there, it's meant with no disrespect, but it is to be provocative, right? To just kind of have that conversation. So we're talking pedigree today. Long story short, we're talking pedigree today in terms of the Kentucky Derby. And one of the things for you that you read, you said, I don't know what dosage index is. And maybe that tells us a lot about dosage index, because if you're able to be a winning horse player, or on your road to be a winning horse player, and at the least you're a winning tournament player right now. So, and you've got all this time without knowing what dosage index is, and you've been quite fine. But for the point being, let's learn about dosage index. So we've got a trusted source here.
Yes, there's no better source on anything than Wikipedia. So it's a good article when it says this article has multiple issues. Please help improve it. So I think you and I will help improve this article today. But the dosage index is a mathematical figure used by breeders of thoroughbred racehorses, and sometimes by bettors handicapping horse races, to qualify a horse's ability or inability to negotiate the various distances at which horse races are run. It is calculated based on the analysis of the horse's pedigree. So nothing worse than Nick reading out loud. My children make fun of me doing it, so now the internet can also do it. So thank you, everybody, for that. I still don't quite understand what, like, you take sires based on crazy 20th century French researcher and we multiply points and then we get to something, or am I mixing that up with something else now?
No, I feel like that's about right, right? You had to come up with a formula. It is, I could read out the formula. I just don't know if it's worth it, because it kind of always, even when you read it out, it sounds like that. It's like you take a thing, you divide it in half by this to that, and then it comes up with a number, and then that number gives you whether the horse is more speed or stamina. And there you go. That's it. That's it. So that's the mathematical thing. So I guess let's get into a little bit more in terms of where do you want to go next?
So then the other one that is a thing that gets talked about is a center of distribution. It's a second mathematical value, and it's the one that has the 54s and minus 9s divided by 50s, giving you a CD of 0.9 or something along those. And then you combine the two of a high dosage index and a center of distribution that tells you this horse will win the Derby based on this number.
Yeah, I guess with this number, it's supposed to come to as close to 1 as possible, or close you get to 0, I guess, right? Okay. Is that what it is? The closer you get to 0.
Yep.
the more of the balance of speed versus stamina, which in terms of the Derby, that's what you need, right? Because you need to be not only run the distance but do so in a competitive manner with that. So should we talk about how that comes about, or
Yes.
why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So how does it come about? How do you do it?
Well, I'm personally like not interested in calculating it,
Okay.
and for the most part you don't have to, because
Yeah.
it's done for you. I think Churchill put something out, or you can go on Pedigree Query, which is a free website, and that'll put in a horse's name and it'll do everything for you, and it'll tell you that dosage index. So it takes away a lot of the math, but there's a lot of basis on it that kind of goes back, like you said, the chef de race, right? That sire that has proven that they can put out horses of stamina, and that's part of that calculation. And for the longest time, it was basically horses that had a number lower than 4 for whatever reason. Now that changed in 1991, and I can read a little bit of that. I know since you had your chance to read, now it's my chance, and I can't. I'm sure this content will be very interesting for people. When it's both you and I reading books, I mean, how fascinating can that be? As I grab at the correct book, I'm going to read from a chapter from Lauren Stitch, Pedigree Handicapping. I think Lauren does a really good job. This is back when I was really interested in pedigree a lot. I found Lauren's stuff really fascinating. And so she talks about in 1991, Strike the Gold exposed the fatal flaw of the modern theory of dosage and the Kentucky Derby. While the original theory of dosage is very real and viable method of determining a horse's aptitude at a distance, short or long, the crack in the modern version of dosage armor regarding the influence on the Kentucky Derby is due to 2 major factors. 1, dosage figures are assigned by a single person and not a committee. They are too arbitrary. And 2, awarding the chef de race select stallions who have had their influence on the breed. That status is flawed because young stallions cannot be designated as chef de, am I even saying that right? Chefs de race. I feel like I've read it so many times and I've never said it out loud, so I hope that's right, until they've proven themselves, in which case many of the sires of Derby winners is after the fact. And that was the case with Strike the Gold. Their sire was sired by Aladar. Established Strike the Gold was 3, and Aladar didn't have that status until after the Derby. Yeah, I think it's called Chef de Race, but we'll know when all the handicappers go through and they see an under 4 and they just shout out, "Yes, chef." We'll know. But yeah, that's kind of what Lauren says in here. So she even kind of recognizes that at one point, using this mathematical system, which is still used by breeders, and again for the purpose of the Kentucky Derby, but since then you're kind of taking it with a grain of salt, especially with now in terms of modern breeding, where it is so much win early, so much like those quick breezes, sell at the sales. Past 30 years, now this book came out maybe 20 years ago, but American breeders have altered the development of the thoroughbred by breeding for speed with little or no regard to stamina, and this is largely a response to the changing economics of the game, which is now dominated by commercial breeders catering to buyers who want to reap a quick return on their purchases of young horses. And the result has been the proliferation of runners who are bred to be precocious, win early types, and the long-term effects of these actions is now reflected in the stakes programs in this country. I mean, she's spitting right here. And this is kind of the case, but it does kind of go back to, in terms of the whole dosage, that sometimes there's those flaws, right? As we were talking yesterday in terms of prep, into mischief, right? Like couldn't do it until they did it. But there just wasn't enough data at the time, and that's really all it took, which was kind of the case with Strike the Gold, and then everything kind of got put under a microscope at that point. So
Yeah, and I because I've looked so little at it, and because I'm so new into this game, it's become one of those things that, like, there's so much that goes into it that you have to, like, spend hours to learn anything about it, and, like, I didn't see Nyquist run, so that's how new I am into this game, and thus, I just know that Nyquist won races. I think he won the Derby, but, maybe he didn't, and I'm like, "But he's a good sire because he was a good racehorse," and I believe there's just a little bit of the sire was good, thus the horse will be good. And it just feels very self fulfilling until you can say, well, not this one. it's not this horse it's good, but the breeding is good. The horse is just bad.
Yeah, and looking through Lauren's book, I'm not going to read too much more, but gives out some examples of Derby winners, whether it's Unbridled or Strike the Gold or Real Quiet. Let me look at some of the others that they have in here. Lily T, Thunder Gulch, Go for Gin. A lot of those horses too, what she brings up in terms of why they were suited to the Kentucky Derby distances, it also gives their past performances, and she talks about it as well in the book, where their form, their speed figures, their class also made them contenders. So you could kind of already see that this was a horse that made a lot of sense, and maybe that was a thing that just gave you a little bit more confidence in there. I think Sea Hero was the only horse that when I looked at the past performances that I was like, oh, this one seems out of nowhere. But then she remarks that even though the track was listed fast on that day, there was a lot of moisture in the track, and this is the type of horse that would move up on an off track, and that being the case. But there's so many examples, even in the pedigree, where what you see on paper is a horse who's been competitive in graded stakes races, has the speed figures, has the foundation, and then whether you want to credit that to pedigree is completely up to you at that point. I really don't know on that front as far as that goes. And I mean, the other part of it too is we kind of always go back to, or what I've talked about in terms of pedigree is once Rich Strike has run, I can assess who Rich Strike is based on what they've done so far. That if they're inbred 5 times over, if I don't know, it's not going to impact what I'm seeing right now. Right. And maybe for a lot of people, I understand, like taking the time to watch the races, having to handicap 20 horses and knowing the context of different racetracks and how racetracks are run and watching the workouts. That's a lot of labor when it's like, oh, this number is good. I can hang my hat on that. Or, right. I bet, who was it? I bet Keen Ice in the Belmont, and like that's my horse for life. And go with that type of a thing.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just when you go deep into it, it feels more of a breeder owner stat idea that you would be concerned with, and less of a gambler's idea. But because of the game that we were playing, they kind of intermix, and so you get a lot more of the breeders care about it, the owners care about it. So as a gambler, I care about it. And that's always what it felt like to me, was why I even knew that breeding existed. And, it's on the past performances, and thus I see it. But otherwise, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if Nyquist is a good sire or not. I think he is, but I don't know if it means anything other than there's a lot of horses that currently run that are Nyquist sired. So somebody's paying a lot of money to get a Nyquist foal, I guess.
Yeah. And a lot of that could be marketing, could be connections, could be a lot of different things, right? A certain sire starts off extremely hot and is winning a lot of races, and you're like, well, they were trained by Bob Baffert. He just wins a lot of races early on. Like, is it the horse, or is it the sire, or is it the fact that like you have the greatest trainer of 2-year-olds at Del Mar in the history of history? Like, which factor do we want to look at here? In terms of those things, where again, I think it goes back to, especially in the Derby, I think there can be times, and again, a lot of that is done in terms of the breeding, because they are looking at those things, and you don't have a horse that has run in the past, so you don't know. The only thing that you know is the sire, the dam, and going back in history and trying to do that science in order to get the horse. As horse players, we don't have to do that, because the horse is already produced. Now, what we have to decide is who that horse is and how that horse fits today's conditions.
So what else do we know about breeding? What else do we care about breeding? Do we use any of this when it comes to handicapping beyond that? I mean, I know you just said for the Derby, especially, like, we have these races that they've ran. So what do we take away from breeding? What do we care?
I personally, it's not something that I use at this point. And again, if it is something that you are a pedigree handicapper and you've had success with it and you do all that, like you do you. But I think a lot, like to your point, is like why you hear about it, why we hear it talked about a lot in the Kentucky Derby goes what I was kind of saying in the intro, as far as it's just that thing to talk about that you can't really get in trouble with, and you can just talk about it. Especially, I don't watch like the main TV that's on cable. I just watch the track feed, but I have watched it in the past and I've heard it come up a lot because it's kind of that go-to thing to talk about. And again, you can't be wrong. You just are kind of saying things about a horse's pedigree and it sounds fine and it makes for good TV. And what use that has, I don't really know other than entertainment.
And
which could be the point.
Yeah, I mean that could also be the whole point of it is that, like, yeah, it's on NBC and thus it's entertainment and it's not on the track feed, though they do talk about the breeding on the track feed on occasion. That seems to be more of a pre-race type of thing than a during the race. So anything else you want to cover with pedigree that we should be thinking about?
I think that's it. I feel like this is a good kind of short and sweet in terms of this pedigree, how we use it, the things that come up, give people a little bit more information if they want to dig in the weeds with it. But I think we've given a primer on it, and even reading it then when I was doing pedigree and reading it back now, I'm like, this isn't for me. It's not my thing.
Well, you started reading a book. I get Wikipedia, you get the book, and I think we've proven who knows more about anything in this game. So my child will mock me again because she loves to read, and I say, yeah, cool, and I go take her to the bookstore. But that's about
awesome.
It's about as far as the books as I'm going to get. So we'll get mocked relentlessly for our pedigree ideas. So I'm used to it at this point. So thank you again, Emily.
Thank you.